Here's to the capitalistic desire to sacrifice our lives in order to have the most fancy coffin, just to flex on our friends that we didn't have time for, and to afford a headstone chiseled with a quote espousing the value of hard work and dedication to something beyond ourselves that no one will read. Here's to the capitalistic desire to sacrifice our lives in order to have the most fancy coffin, just to flex on our friends that we didn't have time for, and to afford a headstone chiseled with the quote espousing the value of hard work and dedication to something beyond ourselves that no one will read. So that poem is called Capitalistic Desire, and it's from the book Wage Slave, the Unpaid Overtime Edition, and it's a collection of short fiction and poetry. And this poem and the book itself was written as sort of my saying goodbye to the norm, the traditional, the regular work life. I tried my best to do full-time work. I tried my best to do the normal, the 9 to 5. But I found that the process was quite literally killing me. I had to take all of my sick days and much, much more, all for my mental health. I couldn't stand the grind. I couldn't stand the politics. I couldn't stand the aimless, pointless monotony of it all. The work I was doing, some people would say was valuable, was, contributing to society, was, inherently rewarding. But unfortunately, I didn't feel that way. I didn't have those same values. Or rather, I was so stressed and overwhelmed by it, and I was doing the job in a way that didn't quite hit those values for me. Some people might have seen value in it. Some people might have felt those rewards, but I was just run down by it. I saw people, co-workers with the latest gadgets and the latest cars and the latest clothes and all of these things, and I felt this need, this desire, this push to keep up with them. Constant advertisements streaming in to buy more, do more, be more. And eventually I just checked out and quit. And that decision to quit was sort of the stimulus, the operating push to write this poem and the book Wage Slave. Because I wanted to sort of express my displeasure with, capitalism. Now, I'm not saying this from an anti-capitalism perspective because it's the best system that we have come up with. Everything else produces far, far worse outcomes for most people. And that might be controversial or highly political to say, but if you look at the stats, the numbers speak for themselves. But nonetheless, all of these systems, every system in which tens of thousands to hundreds to millions to billions of people all come together collectively, seems to be an aberration on evolution. We did not evolve to live in such societies, mega societies, where people can hoard wealth to such an extent that would make the dragons of Tolkien's work seem poor, right? As a side note, they did the maths on that dragon and they realized that were that dragon to be real, that dragon would not be in the top 10 richest people, right? We live in a society in which people can create and push and grow and all of these things and do stuff that will ultimately benefit the world and get rewarded for doing it. And that's great. And that's some of the positive side of these things. If you reward people for innovations, then they produce things that, innovate. And that's great. But it can also cause our true needs to be sort of put aside or manipulated for the sake of the dollar, for the sake of a sale. If you invent a product and you want it to be successful, you now need to manipulate people, aka market to them, to get them to buy, to keep you in business, or else you lose business. And on a fundamental level, this becomes the drive to survive, right? If you get something and I don't, if you get the sale and I don't, you win and I don't. What does winning mean? Winning means that you eat and I don't. there's a lot going on here and a lot that I would like to say about this topic, but ultimately there is this inner sort of displeasure that I feel, and I think a lot of us feel, about the capitalistic nature of our society. This hustle culture, this desire to just do more, be more, buy more, more, all the time. You go everywhere, you see advertisements, you turn on any sort of social media or podcast or video or music or anything, and there's just ads and product placement, and just life is a sell. And the hypocritical thing on all of this, the ironic thing on all of this, the part of me that I dislike about all of this is I am a part of this system and I cannot fight it. And I'm sharing this poem with you and this content with you, telling you it is from the book Wage Slave, the unpaid overtime edition, because I want you to buy it, right? Because I need to eat, because I want to be successful, because I have things that have to happen in my world. But I'm not a revolutionary. I'm not asking for the downfall of capitalism. I'm not asking for the workers to unite and reclaim the means of production, because I'm a student of history and I see where that path leads. But I'm also a student of history and I'm seeing where this path leads. And I'm not offering a solution. I'm just seeing the problem and I'm sharing my discontent about that problem. I would like to inspire you enough to buy the book, but not inspire you enough to riot and tear down the system. I don't know what the solution is, but I can only guess and point at a potential way. I think if people individually check out, if we individually check out and start buying only what we actually need, sort of working out our true needs, practicing mindfulness meditation, and really just eliminating all of that unwanted bullshit from our lives, to step back and see that we don't need the latest stuff, the latest fashion, get out of this single-use plastic culture in which we just buy something and we don't like it, we chuck it out, and actually, think of the future for once. Do things for the greater good. Move against or away from the tragedy of the commons and into a collection in which we work together. Yes, people need to be able to make money and be encouraged to invent and all of those things that have caused a lot of the prosperity of the 21st century. But perhaps we could do it in a way that is more in line with our overall goals as a species, our overall needs as a species, right? The tragedy of the commons goes that, let's say there are 4 farmers with access to a field, and that field can hold 12 cows, right? Before it becomes sort of overused and not usable anymore. Each farmer should, in fairness, put 3 cows there. But the tragedy of the commons is that it's in each farmer's individual best interest to have as many cows as possible. Thus, each farmer gets 4 and 5, and suddenly that field that only could hold 12 cows now has 20, and it breaks down and dies off. The tragedy of the commons suggests that that is happening with the world at large, with all the resources at large. And it's a tragedy because each individual nation, each individual person, each individual country, company, whatever, all wants to have as many cows as possible because it's in their individual best interests. But if we step back and start seeing the truth, if we could all just get a little bit of mindfulness in our lives and start stepping back, stopping and going, hang on a second, I don't need this thing, I don't need to be in this rat race as much, perhaps then we won't suffer the fate of the tragedy of the commons. Here's to the capitalistic desire to sacrifice our lives in order to have the most fancy coffin, just to flex on our friends that we didn't have time for, and to afford a headstone chiseled with a quote, espousing the value of hard work and dedication to something beyond ourselves that no one will read. Here's to the capitalistic desire to sacrifice our lives in order to have the most fancy coffin, just to flex on our friends that we didn't have time for, and to afford a headstone chiseled with the quote, espousing the value of hard work and dedication to something beyond ourselves that no one will ever read. If you like the sound of that poem, if you like the idea of the book, click the link in the show notes and grab a copy of Wage Slave, the unpaid overtime edition. It's a collection of fiction and poetry that'll make you think. Grab it. Buy me dinner tonight. Catch ya.